Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 75 of the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. This is Jacob. I'm here with Decima. How are things going, Decima?
Things are going fabulous, like super, super fabulous. How about you?
Good. I don't know about super, super fabulous, but good enough. So that's all one can hope for, I think. They're good otherwise.
Hey.
I will definitely take it. All right. So this week on the podcast, Charlie interviews Meredith, who I believe is another one of the people that got caught up with the infamous blue kratom kava drink that we're all familiar with. Should be another good conversation about her experience with that and overcoming kratom addiction. So this week for our opening topic, we were going to talk a little bit about meetings and specifically virtual versus in-person meetings. I have a bit of experience with both. I have a long-standing relationship with a local smart recovery meeting that I started going to way before my kratom addiction for other things, which I've come and gone from over the years. But ever since getting off kratom again, I've been going consistently now for about a year and a half. And I also do sometimes virtual smart meetings, as well as I've popped into a few kratom meetings and medicated assisted treatment Recovery Anonymous, or MARA, which is another online group. In my experience, there's pros and cons to each. I'll start with the in-person. The big pro for me on in-person is building local connections with other people in recovery. How is that helpful? It's really great that I'm talking to Decima here and I can talk to Charlie, but they're probably quite likely 1,000 or so miles away from where I live. So it would be pretty hard for me to meet up with Decima for coffee and that sort of thing. And sometimes it is nice to be able to do that. I've actually made some friendships. There's two people that we hang out, we do other things. We have some kind of mutual non-recovery interests. So that's probably like the biggest benefit for me. The other one is just consistency and routine. You can build that with your virtual recovery too, but actually forcing yourself to get up and go to the meeting when maybe you're not feeling it can sometimes be helpful to just keep that routine. On the virtual side, I think the biggest benefit for me is just the convenience. There's so many meetings. There's a kratom meeting every night now. I bet if you looked at all the various different recovery 12 steps, smart kratom meetings, all of them, there's probably a meeting literally like every hour. So if you're in need of recovery and you need something ASAP, you can probably find a meeting to help you. I think the other thing is it gets you a much wider network of people with different backgrounds, different locations. It's a big world. There's a lot of differences with the way people use drugs, the rituals, all that stuff. It can be different based on geographic location, and that sort of thing. There's a lot more pros and cons we can get into, but yeah, curious to hear your experience, Decima.
Oh man, I'm still stuck on the fact that you said people meet up for coffee. Like, I didn't know that they do that. That's really cool. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I could definitely see that it would be okay. Let me back up. I
Yep.
don't have a lot of experience with in person meetings. I have been to some in person meetings in the past. Not anytime recently. I would say
Okay.
not anytime within the last 5 years have I been to an in-person meeting. And it's not because I don't want to. My town doesn't have any, for one. I could travel. I just have been lazy about that and haven't seen the benefit since I have found an online community of meetings and I get like my total feel of that. But see, the thing is, I work from home. I do everything from home. So it's only natural that I would work my recovery from home as well. It does give me, like you said, the routine. But the in person meetings, if there was one in my town at this point, I would go check it out. I really would. In the past, I have been nervous because my experience way back in the past with these type of meetings, in-person meetings is I don't know if this is a common experience, but I actually met other addicts that I wouldn't have met otherwise and started
Yeah.
using with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not a good experience for me, and also, at that time, it was a very small town, just like now, so I am gonna be opening myself up to that criticism that is there really any anonymity? But where I am in my recovery now, I think I'm okay with that. I'm obsessed with the online meetings. I
Yeah.
go to one every single day. I just love them. Like you said, you can meet so many different people. There's general meetings, there's kratom specific meetings. I absolutely love them. But I would like to check out an in-person meeting. So I need to put that on my list of to-do things. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say check it out. Like I said, you may make some friends or get to meet other people locally that you can rely on. I wanted to talk about, you mentioned the one big con, and there's one other one that I wanted to mention about in-person meetings. So the one you mentioned is yes, there is a particularly, it seems like with NA and AA. I didn't encounter this at Smart, but to be very honest with you, I got court ordered when I was 19 because I got caught underage drinking. They made what the as part of the not having to lose your license or whatever, I had to go to 5 AA meetings. I met my future oxy plug at a AA meeting when I
Yeah.
was 19, and from just dabbling and it's to a full on raging habit. Now, I would have, to be fair, I was going down that road anyway, so I probably would have
Right.
met them, but it was much easier because they were ready to relapse. And at that point, I had a desire to be in recovery. I just did it for that. The other con that I found was I did start Smart Recovery when I was addicted to alcohol. And for a while there, before I didn't think kratom was a problem. I thought it was a supplement or whatever before I got addicted to it and realized what it was. I was taking it and going to those meetings, but then when I realized what it was, I was ashamed, so I stopped going. And it took me a long time to be able to go face that because I had to go back and say, yeah, I haven't been here for 2 years and here's why. Now, in hindsight, I could have just sucked it up and gone and not had that huge gap, and maybe that would have been helpful. But it was like there was a bit of a shame there, which I think with the beauty of online meetings is I could have just, if I was ashamed with the one I established myself at, I could just go to a different one because there's so many.
Oh, that's a great point. And it's crazy how the way that we view these meetings and our perception of them is really altered and influenced by where we are in our recovery sometimes. Like you said, that's a great point. A lot of people are there because they're court ordered, they don't really want to be. But where I am now in my recovery, I could be exposed to that and I can handle it.
Yeah.
Early in my recovery, maybe not so much. So that was a great point. Thanks for bringing that up for sure.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But yeah, I think this is a great topic. And needless to say, we say it all the time. There's a gazillion, bazillion meetings out there, you guys, and they are in person and virtual. If you go to thephoenix.org, you can look up meetings in your area for just about any kind of meetings, virtual or in person.
Yeah, definitely. And try, you don't have to pick one and stick with it. What works for you initially may not work for you in a year or two, and that's okay. You can do whatever makes you best in your recovery.
Matt, somebody that we've interviewed before and is a host of one of our meetings, he likes to say, and I'm curious to know if you agree, he likes to say that he's noticed that the people that stay in recovery and stay clean are the ones that keep coming back to the meetings. What do
Oh
you
yeah,
think?
totally. I'll be 100% honest. The reason why I relapsed so many times on so many different substances is because I stopped doing the work. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped going to therapy. I stopped actively participating in recovery because I thought I could handle it. And yeah, and that is really true. If you listen to or meet people that have 20, 30, 40 years of recovery, they're out there. That's usually the common thing is they've continued to
Still
go
there.
to those meetings because that
Yep.
community helps them stay sober. All
All
right.
right,
Well,
guys, utilize those meetings. That's all we're saying. Whether you want to go in person or virtual, utilize it.
definitely. All right. With that, we'll get on to our interview this week.
Hello, today we have Meredith, and we've had such an adventure setting up this interview, there was the scheduling issues, and then we had tech issues. It was the most historic set of snafus in the history of the podcast. Very excited. We're going to make this happen today. So Meredith, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the audience about yourself?
I'm Meredith, and I live in Georgia, obviously a nice Southern accent. I have 2 sons. I'm 47 years old, and I just got a new job that I absolutely love. That's about it.
When did you quit Kratom?
I started it in 2021, and I quit in February of 2024.
All right. And let's go back a little bit further. In 2021, what got you into Kratom?
It was really a pretty innocent situation. I had never even heard of Kratom, but I was in the gas station and I was going to buy a 5-hour energy, having one of those sluggish mornings. And the guy at the counter, I saw the blue bottle, nice and shiny, cobalt blue, which is one of my favorite colors. And I look at it and the guy said, this is like a 5-hour energy, but it doesn't have all that caffeine. So it's not that bad for you. It has just plants. It's all natural. Maybe you should try that. So I did, and I loved it. And I know that first bottle that I took wasn't really my fault because I had no idea. The guy didn't have any idea what was in it, that it was addictive. But when it hit and I felt the way that I felt, I should have known right that second not to ever get another one. It definitely didn't feel like a 5-hour energy. It felt like I was high on opiates with a little mix of benzos thrown in. It was too good to be true. I should have known better. That second bottle I bought was my fault, and I take accountability for that.
Did you start using them every day right away?
I pretty much started using it right away every day. I was previously an opiate addict. I was in opiate addiction for 2 years. My husband died in 2015, and it was very sudden. And I had 2 little boys that were 5 and 7 at the time to take care of. So I dove into an opiate addiction and got clean from it almost 8 years ago. And I guess because of my previous opiate addiction, when it hit the mu receptors in my brain, my body was just like, oh, we know what this is. But it affected me exactly like an opiate, and I was in day one. Very next day, I went and bought another one. A week later, I was buying 2 a day. And it just progressed until the last probably 5 months I was in it. I was drinking anywhere between 8 to 10 a day, sometimes 12. So it was pretty quick for me.
Were you buying them at the store, or did you start getting them by the case from the store?
No, I would buy them at the store because in my mind, I didn't have a problem if I wasn't buying 12 at once. But if I bought 2 at this store and 2 at that store, then it wasn't, nobody knew. Nobody could tell I had a problem. I couldn't get my brain to wrap itself around buying 12 at a time, even though I was taken about that. So I never bought the cases. It was always in the stores. 2 from one store, 2 from another store, so that they wouldn't catch on to what I had going on.
And that start to get really expensive?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I feel so guilty sometimes. All the past 3 years, my sons and I haven't taken any vacations. Any little bit of money I had left over was going to that. They had everything they wanted, pretty much, and everything they needed for sure. But they're just anything I had left over, I was like, I can't buy this new comforter that I want because what if I run out of money and then run out of this tonic and then I'm going to go into withdrawals, but I still have to go to work. So it was a very chaotic, panic situation with the money, for sure. And I definitely borrowed here and there. Oh, I need some gas, and I just paid a big electric bill. And then you start lying. And then this whole thing starts to really feel like the opiate addiction that I had gone through. Lying, justifying, anything and everything to put that little bottle first.
And what were, beyond the money, what were some of the early signs that this is a problem?
My first situation was about maybe 4 months in. At 4 months in, I still had no idea this was addictive. I just liked it. And I didn't do any research on it still. So about 4 months in, I started feeling like my stomach was getting upset a lot. And I was like, it has to be this drink. That's the only different thing I have going on is this drink. So I was like, I'm just going to quit drinking it. I'll just throw it away. So I had 2 left and threw them away one morning and fell asleep that night. And by about 3 a.m., I woke up and I was sweating and antsy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting sick, like just fast, really sick. And I sat up in bed and my legs were just rest. And the minute I realized my legs were restless, I was like, oh my God, this is not happening. So I went into the kitchen, and this is disgusting, but I did it. I dug those 2 bottles out of the trash. I took them. This makes me emotional. And I took them, and within 20 minutes, I was fine. And I just sank down, leaned up against the wall and sank down into my floor and just started crying because I knew where I was again. Sorry. I had promised my sons that I would never put myself in that position or them ever again once I got through my opiate withdrawal. And then here I was. So,
I can hear that's painful. The good news is you're beyond that now. We have a happy ending. Spoiler alert. We'll go a little bit more through some of these hard times because sometimes that's what keeps us from going back.
absolutely.
What happened from there?
Once I realized what was going on, I was terrified. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to start trying to bring it back and not drink as many. I think I quit for 2 days at first, and I quit over a weekend. So I didn't have any like that Saturday and Sunday. Monday came, work was crazy. I was still sweating and feeling terrible. So I went back and got another one. And I started doing even more when I went back in. And I just kept telling myself, I don't have time for the withdrawal. I was terrified that this withdrawal was going to be as long and as painful as the opiate withdrawal, which it is very similar. They are very akin, but the withdrawal from this tonic was not as long. But I didn't know that. I had no idea what was going on. So I stayed in it another probably 6 months or so before I really started trying to research. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell my son's dad that I was going through this again. I didn't want anybody to know. I was going to handle it all by myself. And that didn't work. So I started researching it and I found a group on Reddit called Quitting Kratom. And I was like, okay, at this point, I realized it had kratom in it and had researched it a little bit. So I stalked the kratom page for a while and on Reddit. And then I posted about the tonic I was using. And someone said, hey, there's a group on Reddit specifically for that. And sent me over to the quitting group that I ended up in. And that's where I started to get some help and get some ideas and understand what was going on better. I tried tapering over and I would do great for about a week. And then anything, I would get stressed out, upset, bored, anything. And the usage would go right back up. And then it'd be another 2 or 3 months before I would try to quit again. Just a vicious cycle.
So what started to turn things around? Some people quit the very first time. Some people, they have multiple quits. What was your experience?
When I found the group in Reddit and started talking to people and they had gone through exactly what I had, it started making a difference. And then either you or Allie, one, reached out to me and said, hey, we have this group. It's a WhatsApp chat, more personal. You can get involved. And I got in that. When I got in that chat, there were, I think, 15 people in it. And shout out to you, Rainey Cooper. He helped me through the beginning, and Allie. And y'all talked me through it. And you were like, look, you can do this. This is what's going to happen. This is what you can expect. And taking the unknown out of it for me was huge. That's when I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm really going to do this. And that was the turning point for me. That's what brought me back. Just people understanding and telling me what I could expect. And when you take the lack of knowledge out of something, you take the fear out. So that took the fear out of it for me. And I could wake up in the middle of the night and people on the East Coast would still be in there and talk to them. I wasn't sleeping. This was going on. Everybody said, hang in there. You're so close. And that's what did it for me.
Cooper had this idea at the beginning of the year, and that was in January. So you were one of the original people in that group. It's
Yeah.
remarkable how it's come a long way.
Yeah. There's 140 something now, I believe.
Oh.
It has.
And now you're one of the leaders.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have stayed in there. I'm one of the admins now. I will say that there's people that come in and out and they say, gosh, you all have helped me so much. And I tell them every time, you help me. Every single time that I help somebody and talk them through the beginning of this, where you're terrified and you don't think you can do it. And you start thinking, these people are better than me. They understand it no more. And every single time that I have go through that with one of them, it reminds me where I was and where I don't want to be again. It keeps it fresh. So that's what's kept me clean.
Mhm.
So the people in there, I help me just as much.
So I think I heard you, but did you paper or cold turkey?
I had to go cold turkey. I couldn't do it. People were saying to try you could taper with the kratom, plain leaf kratom or peels or whatever. And I didn't know enough about that. Like I said, this was my first situation with kratom whatsoever.
Mhm.
And then I started hearing people say, like on the Reddit page, saying that they tried tapering with the pills and ended up taking way more kratom than was even in the tonic. So then their withdrawal was even worse. So I was like, I just have to do this. And I had 2 weeks. I could work from home for 2 weeks straight. So I was like, this is it. I'm getting out of this.
And how many bottles did you jump from?
I was one of those not so smart people that was like, this is the last day. Let's live it up. I did, I think 11 the night before I quit. Yeah.
You're not unusual. I think when you have a expiring habit like that, it's not unusual to do one last hurrah. And I've also heard people who they're drinking the kava kratom drink like this or the tonic, and then
Mhm.
kratom, kratom ends up being a problem, just the plain kratom, and they end up doing copious amounts of that. And for some people, that's even harder because it's like when you have all that powder in your system.
And I've heard a lot of people say that taking the kratom pills, when it wouldn't hit that specific high for them, that it would make them jump back into the tonics. Then they would be going back and forth between both, and that just gets worse.
And there are a handful of people that are able to use the kratom to get off the
Oh,
top,
absolutely.
but I don't know. I can't predict when I'm talking to somebody which people will work with and which won't. Everybody's pathway is a little different. Was there anything that you did in those early days that helped with the withdrawals?
I followed the advice on the Reddit page. The vitamin C, I feel like that did help. DLPA helped. You just gotta suck it up and accept where you are and go through it. It's to some extent, though. The sleep was really bad for me. A lot of people talk about only getting an hour or two a night for a while. I didn't sleep one single second until the 6th day. Not 1 second. I was totally panicking. That almost made me cave. But then I had someone that went through a really bad experience with almost a month's worth of no sleep talk me through that. I will say to anyone that's wanting to quit to be weary of anything like Tylenol PM or Benadryl or things you would normally use for sleep. It did the absolute opposite. It made it worse. The restless legs got worse. The all natural stuff's where it's at for the withdrawals for sure.
I had the same experience. I took some ZQL or something like that. It's the same stuff that's in Benadryl,
Mm-hmm.
and I never was lucky. I never had restless leg syndrome. Then all of a sudden, when I took that, I had RLS, and I'm like, oh, this is what people are talking about.
Yes, yes, it made mine way worse. And I was desperate, so I tried everything: NyQuil, ZQuil, Benadryl, and all of it. It just made everything way worse. It's just, yeah, you can't do that. The calm magnesium helped me finally.
Okay. And how long did that last? And when did you start to feel a little bit better or a lot better?
The first 3 days were really bad. Of course, my usage was way up there, almost 2 years worth of, at the end, 8 to 10 a day. But still, surprisingly, day 1, 2, and 3 were really bad. Day 4, there was an hour or 2 where I was like, "Oh, I don't feel like absolute crap right now." And I think when I finally slept for 8 hours straight, that 6th night, was when I woke up and I was like, "Oh, I remember who I am." And it was February and it was like unseasonably warm. I remember one day, and it was that 6th day after I had slept. And I got in my car and rolled the windows down and turned the music on. And I felt like I was having a spiritual experience. I could feel the music again, and the wind coming through the windows felt good. The music felt good. The sunshine felt good. Everything was just absolutely beautiful again. And that's when I really realized how dull that had made me. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't really hear anything. You can't even taste normal when you're on that. It took a lot more for me than I even realized until I got off of it, if that makes sense.
How did those early couple months go for you?
The first month, I struggled with lethargy quite a bit. I felt okay, but just I had to do only what I absolutely had to do for the first 2 weeks for sure. Just, I have to go to work, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna cook dinner, I have to do that, but I'm gonna give myself some grace and not stress myself out about doing everything and getting everything done. I think when you put that much pressure on yourself coming out of this, you're way more likely to relapse because you don't have enough energy and, "Oh, I'll go get one just for today so I can clean my house and get all this done. Then I'll lay back off tomorrow." I did slip doing that in the early stages of it. So I would just recommend doing what you have to do, and that's it for the first at least 2 or 3 weeks.
What kind of supports did you put in place to help you stay on the right path?
The WhatsApp chat is huge for me. I'm in it at some point every day. I really like it. Like I did NA when I went through my opiate addiction. I live in a really small town, and NA, the program, the idea of NA is beautiful. It is. It works if it's done. But a lot of times when you're in a small town, or I guess big towns too, the anonymity and the the principles before personalities part gets lost in the mix when you have a bunch of people together all the time. So for me, this WhatsApp chat is the beauty of that program without without being scared that the anonymity is going to be broken. Like we're really all putting the principle of what we're trying to do and healing and getting better and helping each other through before personalities. We're not arguing because I believe this and you believe that. We're not having political debates. Nobody's attacking somebody for getting clean and then coming back in 6 months later. It's just support and help. It's absolutely beautiful. To me, that has been a whole spiritual experience.
It is a special place.
Mhm.
How are things going in life today? Your health, job, relationship, things like that?
Absolutely amazing. I got a new job that I absolutely love, and I had been offered jobs in this company before, but I wouldn't when I was taking those tonics, I wouldn't even attempt to do that because it was outside my comfort zone. When you're on that stuff, you're so dulled that you do the bare minimum. That's it. There's no extra. There's no trying to get ahead or move forward. You're just stuck. So I got this new job, took a new position. I love it. Me and my sons, our relationships are fantastic. I remember I had been off, I think, about 2 weeks. And my youngest son, I was with him and we were started laughing about something. And I was playing music while I cleaned the house. And he looked at me and he said, "You're not depressed anymore, are you, Mom?" Sorry. So, yeah, it's good. Things are good today.
What type of music are you listening to when you're rocking out and cleaning your house?
When I'm cleaning the house, it's 90s rap. But I love everything. I have all genres of music. I love music. I've always had music, always playing in the background. I don't really watch TV a whole lot. I'm a reader. but I've always got music on. But yeah, the 90s rap does it for the house.
Do you have any travel on your wish list? I know you haven't gone on a vacation in 3 years, so and I'm sure you're saving up some more money now since
Oh yeah, much
spending
more.
on these. Any places you want to visit?
I'm actually scheduled to go to California the third week in September. I'm going to see someone that I have become extremely tight with, actually, that I met in the Reddit group. I'm going to see Allie, and I'm excited about that. I've wanted to go to San Francisco area for years. I've been to LA. I didn't really care for LA so much, but I'm pretty excited about that. This is something I never could have done. It's been 5.5 months now. Something I never could have done 5.5 months ago.
California's it's a good time of year it's not hot or anything. Bay Area is always a little bit cooler, but that'll be nice to see her. What is your top tip for someone getting ready to quit kratom?
I think the thing that has really helped people the most, and it helped me the most when someone said it to me, was acceptance. Usually when I did it, and I see most everybody that comes into our chat or the Reddit group do the same thing, they want the list of what's going to make this go away, what's going to make the withdrawal possible, what's going to make the withdrawal disappear for me. And it's not. Nothing is going to make it disappear. Y- I think the best thing you can do is just think about if you have the flu and the doctor says you have the flu, you're like, okay, that sucks, but I'm just going to go home, get all the things I need at home, and I know it'll end in a few days, and then I'll be okay. You don't overthink it. Treat it like you have the flu, accept that it's going to suck, but you're going to be okay. You're going to make it through. It's like being sick for a few days, and the reward is you get your life back. Just accept that you have the flu.
And I'm going to ask you something spontaneously that came up to me. And you don't feel prepared.
Bring it on, Charlie.
You bring it on. All right. Being in the chat room for so long and talking to so many people, hey, do you see any top mistakes that people make that cause a stumble that could be prevented? We point them out.
I honestly think, and I touched on it earlier, that people expect too much from themselves too fast when you come off of this. Once you get through acutes, and I remember feeling the same way, once you get through the acutes, you feel like that you should be able to get up and take on the world. The acutes are over. I don't feel like I'm dying, so I'm going to get up and clean my house and clean my car and wash it and do all the things that I used to do before I ever started my kratom use. And you can't do that. You've got to give yourself some time and some grace, and pushing yourself too hard to do everything at once has been a huge factor in so many people relapsing. And we have a huge relapse rate with this stuff. It's too accessible. It's just too easy. Like you go to buy a vape at the store and it's right there in your face. Like when I quit opiates, I didn't go to the convenience store and look over and see opiates laying around on the counter. It's just so easy to slip when it's everywhere every day.
Yeah. If you could send yourself a note in a year in July 2025, something like a time capsule, what would your message be to yourself?
To never forget the first days, never forget the beginning of the rest of my life, to how that felt, to enjoy the simple things, to start every day with gratitude. And I would thank myself, and I would thank the WhatsApp group and the Reddit group, you, Cooper, Allie, Ramey, the people that reached out to me in the beginning. You will always have a huge place in my heart.
Do you have any questions for me?
I do want to say you had someone on named Emily, and
Yes.
she produced a product with all of the supplements that we recommend together. And a lot of people have been asking questions about that in the chat and stuff. And I'm not going to recommend something if I don't know how it makes me feel for sure. I tried that, even though I'm far out or whatever. And that stuff made me feel good. And it's all natural stuff for real. I do believe it would really help somebody. It takes the guesswork out of how much of this should I use or how much of that. And Lord, when I went through withdrawals, I had probably 25 bottles of supplements on my counter. So many things. Anyway, I think that would be a fantastic tool for people going through withdrawals, actually.
Right.
It helps me. I take it now. A couple of other people I know, we take it now, and it helps. So I really feel like it. I just wanted to say that if anybody is listening and wondering if that really helps or whatever, it helps me on a daily basis now.
Emily's going to be on the last week in August, and we're going to go over each ingredient in her AM and PM formula. And I'm glad it's an option out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody's forced to buy it, and you still have the freedom to try to every ingredient, experiment with them individually if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, I get overwhelmed having I actually have a ton of supplements in my cupboard that I never finished. They feel like a waste of money. This is unsponsored. It was spontaneous. It's not like it's a commercial for it.
That was 100% my opinion. Nobody, you didn't even ask me. I could see how that would really help somebody. I wish it had been around when I was going through it, because trying to guess all these supplements and how many I should take and not take, and oh my gosh, it was like, it's just chaotic to have that many things and try to hit it all in one day. And I think it could help somebody. And it takes a lot of the guesswork and the chaos from so many things out. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to share my experience that I've actually tried it and what I think about it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
Shout out to my WhatsApp folks. And thank you, Charlie, for having me. Thank you for being patient with all of the hurdles. I feel, I don't know, like the universe didn't want me to do this there for a minute. But we made it happen.
So it was either that or it was a case for us to persevere and to be
Yes.
resilient. So I'm going to go with that.
It was a test in resiliency. That's what it was.
It was a lovely time, Meredith, and I'll be seeing you in the WhatsApp group. And
Yes,
thanks a lot.
sir. Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm JP. Today we have a fascinating and somewhat controversial topic to discuss. Our story begins with a quiet crackdown by the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene on kava bars. These establishments, which serve beverages made from the root of the kava plant, have been facing increasing scrutiny and legal challenges. Toby Smith, co-owner of the kava bar Here and Now, has experienced this crackdown firsthand. His bar has been shuttered twice by inspectors, leading to a bureaucratic nightmare involving hearings, trials, and denied permits. Toby Smith is quoted saying, "We've been scared of everyone who walks in. It's a constant battle to stay open and serve our community." An aspect that may go somewhat unnoticed is the fact that these bars, which call themselves kava bars, are actually selling more kratom than any other commodity. The FDA has not approved kratom as a safe, citing potential risks similar to those posed by opioids. This stance has led to more consistent enforcement actions against kratom products, which are often marketed as treatments for anxiety and addiction despite the lack of FDA approval. The health department said, "We are requiring restaurants serving food containing kava or kratom to stop, and if they refuse, we are requiring them to close. These substances can be dangerous," unquote. Yet the approach to kava seems overly aggressive, especially given the cultural and historical context of its use. It has been consumed safely in the Pacific Islands, where it's an integral part of social and ceremonial practices. The World Health Organization has also noted the traditional consumption methods pose very few health risks. The WHO is quoted saying, "There are very few published adverse health effects arising from the traditional consumption in the South Pacific." So, what's the solution? Many kava bar owners like Toby Smith advocate for regulation rather than flat-out prohibition. They believe that regulating the quality and preparation can mitigate any potential risks while preserving its benefits and cultural significance. The call for sensible regulation echoes the broader harm reduction approach that has been successful in other areas such as cannabis. By providing clear guidelines and standards, we can ensure that customers have access to safe, high-quality kava without the unnecessary legal battles and shutdowns. Be that as it may, kava is a regulated botanical product, as it's not only seen as a food when mixed with water, but also as a dietary supplement. The FDA has strict requirements for all those that import and resell kava, even as a food. Many kava bars in Florida expect around 70 to 80% of their gross income to be supplied through vending kratom. The larger question is, are these bars kava bars at all, or are they botanical bars masquerading as kava bars using South Pacific imagery to sell their addictive drink? That's it for today's episode, and join us for next time as we continue to explore the regulatory landscape of kratom. I'm JP, and thanks for listening. As always, keep it kratom free.
Hey, my quitting kratom friends. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about morning rituals. And I know we've talked about that before, but today I want to talk specifically about how awful mornings are when we're using kratom and when we first quit. For a lot of us, mornings are just the absolute hardest time. They were for me as well, versus how much better it gets or how to make that better. When I was using kratom, mornings consisted of routines that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but I had to do. For example, I had to wake up every morning at least an hour earlier than I actually needed to be up so that I could dose my kratom and then give it time to absorb and start working before I had to actually get up for the day. That was a routine that I had to do, but I didn't enjoy. Another part of my morning routine was getting sick regularly. I woke up in withdrawal every single morning because I didn't dose in the middle of the night. I would have my last dose sometime in the evening, go to bed, sleep through the night, not always peacefully. In fact, I woke up drenched in sweat, wet sheets. That was another routine that was not enjoyable for me and one that I didn't choose to do willingly. I promise you, it does get better. One of the first things that I started doing, and I've talked about this before, is replacing morning rituals with something healthier. When I first stopped taking kratom, it was weird and it was hard to get used to not having to take something in the morning just to feel good and get my day going. So my morning ritual became a healthy morning drink. For example, fresh juice. Amazing for your body. You're doing something good and it's a ritual. A smoothie, water, anything that's actually gonna be healthy for your body. Put that in. That's a great morning ritual to replace the bad ones. Now, like I said earlier, it's crazy to think now, having been through all that mornings are now my favorite time of the day. And I absolutely adore a good morning. If you stop and think about what is the perfect way to start your day, what would make you feel good and set the tone for the entire day to come? What does that look like in your head? Walking the dog, a little exercise, sitting out on the porch with a cup of coffee and reading your Bible, whatever it is that looks like a perfect morning to you, plan to do that and get excited about it. Look forward to doing it in the morning. When you go to bed at night, think about it like, I'm going to do this in the morning. I know it's always easy to be excited the night before. And then when the morning rolls around, it's so easy to say, fuck it. But don't do that. It takes time and it becomes a habit. But before you know it, you are starting your day in a way that sets your whole day up for success. This is what my morning looks like now. And it's like, to me, the best morning ever. As soon as I wake up, immediately straight to feed the cat. And then I grab my bottle of water and I take my dog for a walk. After that, I get my child ready for school. We get on the golf cart, drop him off to school while jamming to some music because nothing beats carpool karaoke, okay? After we drop him off at school, we're hitting the beach on the golf cart and jamming out a little more. I mean,
Once you start your day like that every day, you're going to see a change in your whole life. I promise. I really just wanted to give you guys hope because mornings are tough. They're tough when you're sober. They're tough when you're using. They're especially tough when you quit. So I really hope that somebody out there finds this advice and these tips helpful. And in the meantime, keep kicking kratom in the ass. Some people think that morning is too negative. I like to say grand risings. So tomorrow morning, I hope you have the grandest of risings.